One of the things the board members asked me, then I'll turn it over to the board for comments, is to take a look at, okay, in a more utopian view of our budget is if we needed to add staff. During the work session, you asked me to come up with where would we add staff. Our staff and I approached this differently this time because and let me sort of go back to last year. What we were able to do is reallocate a number of positions, 5 positions, from classroom to needed areas. And that was more of a patchwork to address some areas with as least staff as possible. So we did manage to take 5 positions that were formerly classroom positions, but instead of reducing them, allocate them to needed areas. So just to remind everybody, those 5 former classroom positions are now, 2.5 of them are behavioral specialists, 0.5 of that is additional school psychologist time at one school, and then 2 additional special education teachers. They're not new positions, they're reallocated. So if we were looking at this in a different way and saying, if you could add staff, Mr. Guthrie, and you were able to do that, what is your #1 priority? Where would you put staff? We would eventually have to phase in 1 additional FTE at each one of the 20 elementary schools we have to address some of the what we saw is increasing enrollment, but also, more importantly, create smaller structured learning environments to meet individual students' needs at elementary schools. That's where we need staff. And we'll be able to address more individualized instruction for elementary students, in fact, some of the comments we heard today in citizen participation would comply with creating those other environments for our students. And also, we know that the state has passed legislation and guidelines, and actually COMAR regulations that create prevention from us suspending students at elementary school. So we have to keep those students in school, so we need to be able to create those more individualized plans for students. So if you're asking me what would you do if you had funds, that's where we would do. I would increase elementary staffing, at least 1 at elementary school. And then secondly, and I only go down 2, is we would like to introduce some new computer programming at the Career and Tech Center. The gaming industry is taking off. There are lots of employment opportunities for that industry. We'd like to create a new program for students who are interested in computers and programming into the gaming industry to create career opportunities for those students in those areas. And then one Ms. Herbert has mentioned many times, we did have plumbing at one point. There is now a need, and because of lack of enrollment, it was one of those reduced. There is now a need for plumbing again.
We need plumbers, air conditioning, heating. Trust me, ask everybody this winter.
So there are career opportunities out there, and so 2 positions at the Career and Tech Center. I know that's not going to happen, but the board asked, and as we look at it, there's where I would put our priorities.
In terms of you had said, 1 additional FTE at each elementary school. Would that take the form of, would it be a split of reading specialists, math specialists,
No, I
behavioral
think we were looking
specialists?
Mr. Johnson can better address specifically where those would fall.
This comes from a concept that we've had at middle schools for quite some time, where we had what we called connections classrooms or branches classrooms. It was a step before students were placed at the Gateway or Crossroads Middles. It's an attempt to keep students in the school, but those who would benefit from a more structured, smaller learning environment. The law preventing us from suspending pre-K to grade 2 students, it's just creating the need for us to be able to intervene earlier and in a different way with students that are exhibiting these behaviors. So what we're anticipating is an intervention teacher, a teacher who's trained in specific interventions, but can work with students and still access the curriculum as they're in this structured learning environment.
Thank you.
Just to put a price tag on 20 positions, Mr. Hartlove, can you do?
I would say 20 positions would be, let's say, $1.3 million. Is that right? Yeah, $1.3 million.
So, not realistically affordable.